People have to be alerted to the fact that we are getting some really bad characters coming into this country.
Despite being one of the most famous people on the planet, it's remarkable just how little is actually known about Donald Trump. Questions about him that no one can really answer for sure include just how much money does he really have? What exactly about him has endeared him to so many people? And what sort of rodent died to become his heir? Harassing any expedition into the truth about Donald Trump is a nearly impenetrable shroud of lies surrounding his image and public persona. While a few of these lies about Donald Trump come from his political enemies and detractors in the media, most of the commonly held myths about the man come from Trump himself. For while Trump values his personal brand at $3 billion, that brand is built on a series of falsehoods that are far too commonly believed. While these lies may very well number in the hundreds or thousands, depending on just how you add them up, I'd like to break down what I see as the 10 central lies that together constitute an all too large portion of his public image. Why 10? Because like the man himself, the number commands an unmerited degree of authoritativeness and credibility.
He says what he means. I honestly believe he's telling the truth.
The first notion I'd like to dispel is that he tells it how it is.
We would not do the deal unless it was going to be a very good deal for us. Make a deal, it would be great, but it's got to be a great deal.
While he may speak like a 7-year-old,
But I have many friends, I own many properties, many, and I have many people that know, and
that doesn't mean he possesses the innocence of a child.
honestly, I don't hear it often.
78% of his statements checked by PolitiFact are ranked as mostly false, or pants on fire. He is currently facing a lawsuit for his fraudulent Trump University, which was neither a university nor taught by Trump himself.
We started looking at Trump University and discovered that it was a classic bait and switch scheme. It was a scam.
Though this did not keep him from pocketing the money scammed from his own fans and supporters. He was for the Iraq War before he was against it.
Are you for invading Iraq?
Yeah, I guess so.
By the time the war started, I was against the war.
He was pro-choice before he was pro-life.
I'm very pro-choice.
So for those folks that are pro-life, I can fully, I concur with you 100%.
And he has repeatedly claimed not to be a politician while running for president. Just because someone speaks bluntly and aggressively doesn't mean they're being honest. And one of my favorite lies that Trump tells is that he is the least racist person.
Are you racist?
I am the least racist person. I am the least racist person.
I cannot say with any degree of certainty whether or not Donald Trump actually feels that non-white people are in some way inferior, because I cannot read minds, and if I could, I probably wouldn't dare venture into what passes for one in Trump.
I'm a person who happens to be very smart.
But I will say that someone who flirts with the likes of David Duke and his supporters.
I don't know, honestly, I don't know David Duke. I don't believe I've ever met him. I'm pretty sure I didn't meet him, and I just don't know anything about him.
Someone who has repeatedly retweeted white power groups and has secured their endorsements.
I am not endorsing Donald Trump, but I do think that we should vote for him, and I will vote for him.
Is probably not the least racist person. No, someone who called undocumented immigrants rapists.
They're rapists.
Their children anchor babies.
Excuse me. I'll use the word anchor baby.
And who accused the first black president of not being born in America before demanding to see his school transcripts. Someone like that seems to me quite far indeed from being the least racist person. It may very well be the case that the hate speech he's directed to Muslims and the clumsily anti-Semitic remarks that he made to a crowd of Jewish Republicans were made just to attract racist voters, while he himself does not harbor those views. But I think it's fair to say that these are not the actions of the least racist person. Now, one thing that has gotten Trump a lot of support is the idea that he is an anti-establishment candidate. And indeed, the Republican donors seem to hate him, and for good reason. They can't control him the way they do typical GOP candidates. But what is the establishment that anti-establishment voters hate so much? The establishment is the corrupt system in which billionaire campaign financiers and corporate lobbyists buy spineless politicians with legalized bribes, and in so doing erode the principle at the core of any democratic system, which is the idea that the ultimate power of government should rest in the people. The corruption anti-establishment voices oppose is the power of the super rich to buy the government. Rather than opposing the corruption of the establishment, the Trump campaign simply makes it more efficient. Rather than having billionaires and corporations buy candidates, in this case, the billionaire head of a corporation is himself running for office. A Trump presidency would represent a merger of big money interests and government power greater than anything the Koch brothers ever dared dream. And while we're in this general area, let's talk about the idea that Trump is self-funding his campaign.
And I'm totally self-funding my campaign.
In point of fact, he loaned his campaign $17.5 million while giving only about $250,000. All of the money that he loaned his campaign, he can actually give back to himself. And the Trump campaign actually has a significant amount of money that did not come from Donald himself. His campaigns actually raised $7.5 million from individual contributions. Money taken in by his supporters, who, by the way, are very likely to believe that the mainstream media is unfair to him. Actually, the only reason Trump has managed to survive in the race without dumping large amounts of money into ads is all the free media he receives from mainstream media news outlets. Trump is an entertaining guy, and his appearances create spikes in viewership. For this reason, media outlets cover him in excess and often invite him onto their programs. Because a Trump interview is actually very good for ratings, mainstream media outlets do not want to lose access to him. For this reason, TV hosts are generally very cautious not to offend Trump, for fear that he won't appear on their show. Some, like Joe Scarborough, have gone so far to cater to Trump that Trump himself was caught saying this.
I saw it on what you showed this morning. You have me almost as a legendary figure. I like.
No, I tell you, this morning.
Trump is often perceived to be a tough guy. But for a tough guy, he's weirdly insecure about his hair, his tiny fingers, and recently his penis size.
I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it.
And when two women from Black Lives Matter interrupted a Bernie Sanders speech, here's what this tough guy had to say about that.
The way he was taken away by two young women, the microphone, they just took the whole place over. That will never happen with me. I don't know if I'll do the fighting myself or if other people will.
Now this might just be me, but in my opinion, a tough guy isn't someone who threatens to have security guards beat up women.
Get him out of here! Get out!
Trump had basically the same childhood as this guy. In college, he wore a suit to class, and while John McCain was being tortured in a POW camp in Vietnam.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay?
Trump spent the war in fashionable New York City nightclubs, having received a deferment from service for bone spurs in his foot. Which one? He doesn't remember.
He's a pussy.
Trump's fabulous wealth may make him look a little like the embodiment of the American dream. Trump's life represents the American dream only insofar as your version of the American dream is for the son of a multimillionaire construction magnate to buy his way into elite schools with daddy's money, make deals using his father's business connections, and leverage massive debts, obscene levels of arrogance, and his family name to become a billionaire construction magnate. A lie Trump constantly propagates is that he's never filed for bankruptcy.
I have never gone bankrupt, by the way. I have never. But out of hundreds of deals.
But sir,
excuse me.
That's your line, but your companies have gone bankrupt.
Out of what am I saying?
Well, as far as we know, he has never filed for personal bankruptcy. He has filed at least 4 times for corporate bankruptcy. And although that's a fact, Trump continues to threaten to sue nearly anyone who brings the matter up. Now, while many think the RNC is in some way trying to stop Trump, the chairman of the RNC, Reince Priebus, has actually caught a lot of flack for not trying to stop him.
I'm called out for not beating up the front runner of the GOP. It's ridiculous. Come on. That's not my job.
While he is certainly not the Republican establishment's favorite candidate, and establishment candidates like Mitt Romney have come out against Trump pretty hard.
A business genius, he is not.
The RNC itself has not put its thumb on the scale. In fact, they have very little power to do that, as unlike the Democratic Party, they have no superdelegates to levy against the will of the people and affect the outcome of the nomination process.
When they have superdelegates in their back pockets and could give a darn what their grassroots is telling the party, that's not how we operate our party on our side.
Mark my words, if Trump wins a majority of delegates, he will be the Republican nominee. And this brings us to our 10th and final lie, that there's a good chance Trump won't win the Republican nomination. although the process isn't over until it's over, and there is some possibility of a brokered convention. And in the event of a brokered convention, Marco Rubio, or far more likely Ted Cruz, could have some chance of stealing the nomination. These scenarios are still very, very unlikely. The reality is that no one, not even Ted Cruz, has a very good chance of overtaking Trump. Trump currently leads in delegates, states won, and in the national polls, as well as in the state-by-state polling for the majority of states that have not yet cast their ballots. Trump is certainly and absolutely the candidate to beat. For him to lose the race for the Republican nomination would require seismic shifts in projected results. So like it or not, Trump is almost certainly going to be the Republican nominee. And if you want the Democrats to win the presidency, there's at least one good reason to like it. Hillary Clinton beats Trump 47-40. Bernie Sanders beats Trump 51-38.